Part of the reason I have the lights right here so you can hear me quite fast.
Testing. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. We also, what is your name? We have one person live, if you wish to give it. What is it? I can't hear your first name. Grace, nice to meet you. So far we have one person live, and of course we have Dawn, who's doing all of our video, audio, video. Thank you, Dawn. And thank you to Julian, who just closed the door. We're expecting a few more people live, but I've never started a class this late. I deeply apologize. So before we begin, let's do some really quick housekeeping. As we begin today, let's talk about the text you'll be using. That some of you may have what is called more the Pecha style text. And as you see, I'm starting with the Tashi prayer if you have it. If you don't, that's fine. And then if you have a sadhana at home, then the main sadhana probably is a blue, and then we're going to do the Mahamudra lineage prayer. And then after that, I have all my musical instruction, which we don't need today. After that, we will use this prayer. It's blue cover, and it's called the Stream of Lapis Lazuli, and that is the actual practice. Now, some of you online may have downloaded the newer version we have of the Medicine Buddha practice, and I have that also here online. And it begins on page 1, and it says the Dakpo Kagyu lineage prayer. But before we begin any practice, I just have to say, this is so unusual. I'm used to having a tiny little, my iPad right in front of me. This is so cool though. Thanks again, Dawn, for this. This will be a much higher quality. So in order that our activity today be of merit, that I don't make too many mistakes, and that we continue to have the correct attitude to receive any kind of instruction that is this precious, we usually always begin with the Tashi prayer, which we spoke on last week, that is actually on our website. The Tashi prayer consists of prayers for 5 different groups of beings: the Buddhas, their teachings, and their community. That's number 1. Number 2 are very special Buddhas from the past. By the way, this prayer was originally spoken of by Shakyamuni Buddha himself. So there's the 3 jewels, there's the Buddhas, There's the male bodhisattvas, the female bodhisattvas, and then the protectors of all practices. So we always say this prayer, and it is normally done so that we have an auspicious beginning or ending, and so that we don't have many obstacles. So what you might, and it is not in with the group that Lama Cathy just sent out, but some of you that already do this know that it's called the Tashi prayer, or verses of the 8 noble auspicious ones. And I will chant that first. So please join in. Om Nansi Nanda Ranchin Lundupe Tashi Chochu Shinna Shupayi Sanje Chudangen Dun Babe Tsok Kunla Cha Sada Chatra Shisho Runwe Kya Po Sade Dun Dun Gom Jampe Gemba Ge Badra Bamba Kunla Gomba Gya Che Drapa Chen Lumpo Tapa Tsa Drapa Dani San Chen Tan Che La Gondra Bebel Yitzin Se Pa Tsa Ra Drapa De San San Tu Petra Shi Pel Belwa Dewa Shepa Gela Jatsalo Jampa Shunu Pa Den Do Jizin Chen Rizig Wang Gombo Jampe Bel Sai Nimbo Dripa Namba Sel Nan Ke Nimbo Pacho Kuntu San Upel Dorje Pekar Lun Chindan No Buddha Wadre Nima Yi Chatsen Legnan Trashi Pelgi Chok Chan Chut Samba Gela Chatsalo Vincendo Chotrashi Seginga Tujum Posa Ion Kamala Nandra Tu Dampun So Pelbeu Inu Yatsel Moingur Polo Te Vincent Tacho Kiki Chatsen Chen Cho Tu Gawa Cho Chi Ye Kegma Yek So Gawa Drimbe Pel Pelwe Trashi Lhamo Gela Chatsalo Sampa Chimbo Dejan Segme Bu Mitan Den Dan Yapo Yoko Sun Pake Po Dan Lukwan Mig Mizam Nan Tu Se De La Te Kolo Dan Trishula Dan Tu Tu Dorje Chen Pi Wan Re Di Chu Ten Ga Sen Sen Sa Su Ne Su Ge Le Tra Shi Pel Chiteng Yang Wa Ge La Chat Sa Lo Da Cha Den Yira Ja Wa Song Ba La Kek Dan Ne Wa Tse Wa Kun Chi Ne De De Ba Ba San Du Ni Shin Du Da Shi De Le Bun Sun So Par Jo. So I see that Lama Cathy's laptop, I don't know her password, so I'm now going to switch the text over to my iPad. No technology today. I swear, I think Mercury must be in retrograde or something today. So before I begin, we will do one more prayer. Let me just open this text up. Here it is. We're going to be doing, so now Grace, it's on page 3 in the red book. The red book. The other book, page 3. Thank you. Now we're doing the Mahamudra lineage prayer. The new prayer book that has come out from KTD just came out a few weeks ago. And in this prayer book, many of our sadhanas have been slightly, the texts themselves are the same, but what's really wonderful is all of the fine print, which is, it's called yikchung, which are the instructions of the author and the editors of the text. Lama Lodro, I'm sure, put all of that in. Also, it has Chinese. So for those of you that are Chinese, you'll be able to pronounce the actual words of the text. Okay, now the text at the center are the old style, just to let you know. So next, we're going to spend a moment and do the Dorji Chang. This is our lineage prayer. And I just wanted to say something. Today's entire teaching will be based on conversations I've had with Trungpa Rinpoche, Khenpo Karcha Rinpoche, and mostly from Trungpa Rinpoche's book. This is an older version. If you just look up Medicine Buddha Teachings on Amazon, they even have this in our bookstore in upstate New York called Namse Bangso. And I can send you those links at any time. Before Trungpa Rinpoche teaches anything, he always does this lineage prayer, and he always says a few words about it, which are very beautiful. So I thought I should read them for you. He said the purpose of reciting this supplication to our lineage is at the beginning of a practice, isn't to invoke and receive the very blessings of the practice of Medicine Buddha through the power and faith and devotion in the deity. So this prayer is very, very sacred, this lineage prayer. And so we're going to have a couple of lineage prayers today, but this prayer particularly was written by a practitioner who was on an island for 18 years practicing, and you could not get to it in the summertime because of the water, and in the winter only the ice. So very few people went there, and he composed this beautiful prayer that we will just do now. I'll do it at a quick clip because we have a lot to get through today. And so we normally hold, let's talk about mudras today, hand gestures. Whenever we normally do lineage prayers or supplications, we put our hands together as if I'm holding a gem inside. Some people would also say you're holding, it should look like the bud of a lotus flower. So we begin, and it's held around your heart center. I drink the water. So you might be reading this off your computer, or maybe you ordered that new book, or maybe you don't have this yet. So don't worry, we're just going to do this one time, and after this, we'll be doing the Medicine Buddha. Om Dorje Chantelo Narodan Marpamila Chuje Gambola Dusun Sheja Kunge Karmapa Jeshi Chunge Gyupa Zinandan Dudatsa Sumbaden Dudungum. I'm sorry, I'm doing the Tashi prayer. Let me start over again. Dorje Janchen de lo Narodan Marpamila Chuje Gambopa Dusun Cheja Kunyen Dharmapa Jeji Chungi Gyupa Zinandan Dritatsa Sunbaden Duvaso Sablam Chadya Chela Yanepe Namedro Gundapo Kadula Soa Depso Kagyu Lamanam Yupatsino Namdar Jinjilo Jenlo Kongi Gampar Son Bajin Zenor Kuna Chachin Bebadam Sedu Duda Chupe Om Chinla Neko Shemba Mepar Jinjilo Muku Gomhi Gowar Son Bajin Menya Tego Jepe Lamala Yundu Soadepe Om Chinla Chemin Mugu Chewar Jinjilo Yeme Gongi Ngashir Son Bajin Kanchar Tope Ngowo Somate Macho de Karjope Om Chen La Gomja
Lodandrawar Jinjilo Nantongor Kosun Pajin Jian Mayin Chirian Charwala Magaro Parcharwe Pom Chinla Porte Medopar Jinjilo Ewa Kuntu Yandan Lamadan Rame Chuki Palam Lonjujin Sadanam Kiyuntin Ratsodne Dorje Changi Gopanyo Tosho.
So if you're new to our lineage or new to Buddhism, and we put all these prayers in front of you, it's fine if you don't chant it, maybe read it in English so you know, or sort of know what you're reading. So let me see. For some reason, I've put the Lundro text in here, which I don't need for today. I have the wildest time going on with my text this week. So there is another prayer online that a lot of you don't have, but because of the nature of this practice that we're going to be doing today is from Mingyur Dorje. He lived at the same time as Karma Chagme Rinpoche, which was hundreds of years ago. And I'm going to speak about him later. But he did an entire series of practices called Nam Chu, which Nam is sky and Chu is Dharma, or the teachings of the Buddha. So he was a mind revealer. So in terms of his ability, these practices came to him through his mind, and he is the originator of this practice. So in that regard, he was part of the Nyingma lineage. And so because he was a Terma revealer, he is part of Guru Rinpoche's practice and his lineage. So we always do Guru Rinpoche prayers whenever that is the case. I mean, it's always nice to do them. So I believe this is the same Guru Rinpoche prayer that we say in Tara, and that's in this new handout. We don't normally do this when we do Medicine Buddha, but I'm now talking to Lama Cathy and KTD about what they would like us to start doing, because Medicine Buddha is a really quick practice, and it might be nice to start filling in all the gaps so that we're all doing the same thing. So I'm going to be doing, it's called the 7-line prayer to Guru Rinpoche, and it's a beautiful prayer. We do this at the beginning of Tara. We do a short version after Chenrezig. On organ yogi nu jatsam be mage sardon bola yatsen choki ngudune be majune jesu dat budu kando mambuku iki jesu dajuki jinjila jishe suso necho tiru jimbola tu chundala wanchi kor yedan loden barjeso Chudan tumongo jutso Oma ahum benza guru Pema siddhi hum Oma ahum benza guru Pema todransa Benza samayat zaza Sarva siddhi palahum Arima Harini saratsari Sittari zaza Guru Kanda Sochengi Dachemu Bebu Namla Ula Koye Jinjilo Lala Sungi Jinjilo Ila Tuche Jinjilo Wanjin Kawar Jinjilo Kuji Tapar Jinjilo Lanchi Topar Jinjilo Kuji Topar Jinjilo Oma ahum bensa guru hema dewa dakini kaya abi kensa waka abi kensa sita abi kensa
Sarva Abhi Kensari.
So now finally, we're going to begin with medicine Buddha practice. So Grace, you can, just the blue one now. Yeah, great. So you can just open that up. And I just want to ask all the people that are online how's everyone doing? Are they lost or do they need any help or? They're good? Oh, good. So you can always send Don a quick note or message if you have a question in chat. So today, when we do the medicine Buddha practice, if you're in a large formal setting, which I'm hoping we'll be doing more here at the center, we'll actually do this practice with musical instruments. We'll have cymbals, drums, bells, and we can use conch shells and other instruments. So just to let you know, you can do that. And if you have a bell at home, go get your bell because you'll use your bell a little bit. But I think the first session, I won't use the bell. I want you to kind of hear what's going on. So let's do a setup now. I have several handouts for the people in house, but we don't need anything except for maybe one. And it's kind of the master flow sheet. So it says, just says medicine Buddha sadhana practice, and it's 6 pages long. So in the past, I have painfully taken you through every page of this. And there's so many details, but they're all from Trungpa Rinpoche's book. So I think between the book and the sort of synopsis outline, that would help you a lot later on. Normally when we learn a practice, we are introduced to it. So many of you here, were you here for Lama Karma's Empowerment? A Medicine Buddha? So many of you that are online, I know some of you were here, and some of you that might be listening in the future probably have received the empowerment for Medicine Buddha. And this is a beautiful introduction to the center where the teacher confers on you the blessings of Medicine Buddha and also the blessings on the visualization of the practice. So we have 3 pieces of the puzzle in Vajrayana. We have an empowerment, we have a reading transmission, and we have an instruction on the visualization. Empowerment in Tibetan is Wang. The reading transmission where it's called Lung, where they read every part of the entire text, cover to cover, even the title page is read. So you're now given that blessing. And the next part is tree. So even though I'm very ordinary, I'm just slightly channeling through what Trungpa Rinpoche said. So really the teachings of the tree are coming from Trungpa Rinpoche, just to let you know. And that's why I think if you embrace this practice, then please get his book. It's not that expensive. Or try and find a used book, used copy of it. It's very marvelous because he spent an entire week going through every line of the text when this was years ago. And at that time, I was supposed to be there. I just had a very serious accidental stroke, but I couldn't get on a plane yet. I was still learning to walk. And Trungpa Rinpoche's students were so kind to me. They all sent me their handwritten notes. And then later it was turned into a book. And so we're all so blessed now that we have all of this in place. This practice is done throughout all of Tibet in ancient times. And of course now throughout India and Nepal and other Himalayan countries. And now all over the world. It's very wonderful. There are 3 different Medicine Buddha texts. This one is the shortest and considered the most effective. It's very condensed, but very beautiful and very easy to move through. When you start hearing about all these things to visualize this and visualize that, I want you to just relax and not worry about how perfect it is. Just relax with it, knowing that over time, we all practice. This is called a practice. So I still to this day will take the text after 30 some years, take the text and then compare it to the notes and to Rinpoche's book, and to make sure I understand certain areas a little bit more clearly. So it just flows very beautifully. So today, instead of going through every line of instruction, I thought I would just touch on the highlights of the sections. And then I would like to talk about the history of the practice, talk about the most important part of this practice is how to visualize Medicine Buddha and how to bring him into the room, how so that you are Medicine Buddha. In this practice, there are two parts of the visualization. There can be. For all of us, the most important one is that very early in the text, it says, you are now Medicine Buddha. And I think a lot of people balk at that. And in the text, there's also a frontal visualization of Medicine Buddha with a full retinue. According to Trungpa Rinpoche and many other teachers, the most important part of this practice is to start learning that you are the deity. We all have an enlightened nature. And because this is a Himalayan Buddhist center or Vajrayana center, we focus a lot on deity practices where we do a great deal of visualizations. The point of the visualization, why should I become a Buddha? I'm just Cathy Jackson. I'm very ordinary. You know, I'm married. I go to work still. I should retire, but I haven't. You know, all these things. I have all these neuroses like everyone else. But another part of us, a seed that has been planted very long ago, from the very beginning, is that we actually have enlightened nature. That's why we're so able to develop tenderness and love for children, for our children, for other people when we see suffering. And it's so important that when we do these practices to realize that this is a system. There's a lot of different styles of in Vajrayana. The point of this whole practice is to learn about your identity of who you truly are, your true potential. And it is just as effective if you do this in a Lojong practice. And many of us here do other deity practices. Some of us do Chenrezi only. Some of us do Green Tara. Some of us do Amitabha, Ngunjo, or we do all of it. And that's fine. I remember after I had my stroke, Khenpo Rinpoche very kindly begged me to come to the monastery. And I made plane reservations, not having any idea how badly I was, how sick I was. So my husband said, no, we're going to drive there. And when we got there, he told me, you have to start doing Medicine Buddha. And I didn't argue with him, but I said, well, but I've been doing Chenrezi all this time. He said, no, now is the time for Medicine Buddha. You need to be healed. You need to be stronger so that you can help others. So this is another little pep talk about a lot of us have taken something called the Bodhisattva vow, that we will not become enlightened until everyone else is. Well, you need to have a strong body, a strong mind, very powerful spirit to keep going, have a lot of courage and confidence. This practice heals that. This practice actually, maybe short-term or long-term, affects our body, our speech, our mind, our qualities increase. And if you're lacking in them, then you pray for that when you're doing the mantra. So today, I just want to encourage you to realize, I used to teach, I think Don was in the old classes when I would say to everyone, who are you? This is when we're doing the practice, because at a certain point, you become Medicine Buddha. And it's something where you think, no, I'm down here and the Buddhas are up there. No, that's why I remember I also met another wonderful teacher, Tenka Rinpoche, after my stroke. And he told me just to mostly think about me being Medicine Buddha. And I said, I really prefer to do it frontal. And he said, everyone does. It's much easier to worship something in front, not within. So remember that. So today's schedule will be kind of interesting. I'm kind of reinventing this class. It's almost 10:40 now. So I would like us twice to do the practice. So I'll speak a moment about how it's laid out. So we'll just go through the practice at a good clip. And I will stop at a specific point. First in the practice, just looking here. Let me bring this back up on the screen. In the beginning, there is a stuff, and if you have my, can you tell I use this? If you have my little handout of the flow sheet, well, just let's look at the headers. Are going to first chant the supplication. These are all of those in the past that have had a connection with Medicine Buddha. The second is then we actually go into doing the practice. We take refuge in bodhicitta, then we'll consecrate and completely transform our environment. And then moving on, we will then learn how to do the generation stage and actually doing the visualizations. This is where we're going to stop for quite a while because that's the hardest part. But I just thought we should just start walking through the text more and more. So if you have the text that also has Chinese that's online, on page 8, I want to make sure everyone's on the right one. And for those that have a paper version, it's just page 2. You'll see a picture of Medicine Buddha. And the other is page 8. And it begins with Namo Bhikkhanse Maharajaya. Medicine Buddha has 2 tunes. One is a chanting tune, one is a sort of a real tune, and one is just a chant. And when we're all done and said with today is just an introduction. If you're serious about the practice, you live nearby, you can always come here and talk with me, or even remotely. I do a lot of work with people on Zoom, online, privately, no cost. I want as many people that are out there to feel very comfortable with this practice. And there's never a silly question. Since most of our people are online today, you don't have to now, but later if you have a question, as I said, you could send it over to Dawn or Grace, you could ask right out loud, okay? So we're gonna start on page 2 in the text, or, this moved on to 30 something. I don't know how I did that very quickly. I don't know why at home, I just don't seem to have these problems. Let's just first do the supplication. The supplication is just a straight chant, as we would call it. Again, we have our hands in the prayer mudra. Some people call it Anjali. I think that's a Western term. And we'll begin. And so at home, please, and here, don't worry about how you sound. Everything is perfect. I think we think, oh, we have to sound perfect. No, just do whatever you can. So the first phrase means homage to the great king of medicine. And we just say that. Namo Bhikkhanse Maharajaya. Sonam yunten gatso tenga shing samgi mikam tuche jimaki dowe duna doma shiseba bender yai ula. So I'm going to make a correction right here. I want to see if it's on here. I've been wanting to tell more people about it. So if you have the paper practice on page 2, the second line, the third phrase before the picture, it says Bender Ya, then it says O Sowadem. There should be a YI after Bender Ya. So it's Bender Yai, just to let you know. So let's start over again. That's one of the few corrections. There's a few corrections in the translation of the other, but the Tibetan is perfect. We'll start again. Namo Bhikkhanse Maharajaya. Sanam yunten gatso tenga shing samgi mikap tuje jinapki dowe duna duma jizeba bendu yai ula sawadam shintu sanadapo rachimbe yuda nisu kewe kewoyi yusendana mike jimbaga jumden megilala Sawadam certain shadan shila shi sunbe nawaki we jawa didaki
Kutsen natari ewa son mengi gyapo de la soada. Kanda yanda trama du mai ratun jejun sotra wada. Kutsen nade da tse minu mengi gyapo de la soada. Celestes andrime na wadan. Nanye me chopana chodrayan. Nuken gyapo drayan gyapo dan. Chakya gyapo nama sowadan. Champa gatro chana toche. Sin sawan gachi. Choshi gyapo shi. Tujen de punchen pochi. Chuni so kyoko yonsu. Sola sowadan. Deshin shepa dongi mulando. Mingi lai jude nidane. Dechen shiwa suse chunla so tancho le wan sola so wade. Bodhisattva rison de senso lo pengalon janju sambadan. Yupe lama dambadan jedan. Chuki wan chu sola so wade. Deda so wada bejin lapi. Neka deda jipana so shi. Jitsen nitso jiva kunjine, dewa chunju gewar jinjilo. Now, and by the way, this was written by Karma Chagme, who was the tutor of the Minja Dorji, who was a very young, high teacher that he actually took care of, was almost orphaned. And Karma Chagme himself, who was famous for being in a retreat over 13 years, yet teaching whenever people would come up to the cave, he actually wrote this introduction and he edited the rest of the text. We often like to know who wrote everything. So that's the history of that. Now we begin, and I'm going to read in the front of this, there's a little bit of blurb here on page 6. I'm going to read it from I'm going to call it the Chinese, the text that also has Chinese. It says, this is called the Yik Chung. You'll see it on page 6. You know it's Yik Chung. Often the Tibetan is a little tinier, but there's no Tibetan translation under it. So that's how you know that's instruction. Sometimes it would say 3 times or something. But here, usually at the beginning and the end of a practice, there's a lot of commentary. This is written usually by the people that wrote the text. It says, Namo de Kanzeya. If they are available, arrange in front of a medicine Buddha, Tonka, that's a painting, as many peaceful offerings as you can, such as a mandala or other offerings. In this way, the accumulations are completed. These are not available. It is enough to make a mental offering while imagining the front visualization in the sky. Nothing else is needed. Since this belongs to the Onattara tradition, the practitioner need not refrain from eating meat or liquor, performing the ritual purification, such as taking the blessing of pure water. It is, however, definitely necessary to receive the empowerment and retransmission for this practice because it belongs to the Onattara tradition. Since it belongs to the Nyingma tradition, the self and the front visualizations are emanated simultaneously. It is not necessary to create them separately. As it is chanted in the meditation of the Nyingma, your mind should meditate on the meaning of the words. So I'm going to make a comment on this immediately. I spoke to Trungpa Rinpoche about this, and he even has it in the book, that the history of this practice is maybe something we should note right now. At the time when Shakyamuni Buddha lived, our historical Buddha, 2,600 years ago, they had special retreats during the rainy season in Vaishali. And there, it was the way the teachings of the Shakyamuni Buddha are taught in the sutras it's kind of a question and answer session, basically. And someone went up to him and asked, in the past, who was one of the most profound most compassionate Buddhas. And Shakyamuni immediately started speaking of Medicine Buddha. He said before Medicine Buddha was enlightened, so before any of us are enlightened, we will have an opportunity in a holy place to be asked, what will you look like as a Buddha, and what will your activity be? And his was that he had 12 aspirations, and making them very simply, the aspirations were that whoever would hear his name, or see his name written, or write his name and there were 12 different points that they would become enlightened, and their suffering from mind and body would be removed immediately. So he kept at this and he would not become enlightened until this came true. And so he's considered one of the foremost practices we do for healing. We also do white Tara practice also, just to let you know. So, and they all have the same power, the same benefits. Chenrezig has exactly the same benefits. It's just the focus here is more on healing. So that is who Medicine Buddha is. So Trungpa Rinpoche said, because of the vastness of the aspiration of Medicine Buddha, anyone can do this practice. Anyone. You don't have to take refuge. You can just sit down and do this practice. He said that it is the same with Chenrezig practice. Chenrezig has that same profound vision and same profound aspiration, so vast to help all living beings that immediately you can do that practice. So even though it says that here, I just want you to know that. Okay, so now let's do refuge. We begin almost every practice. So if you know it's a Namchu practice, a Sky Dharma by Mingyur Dorje, usually because there's a supplication. That's a slight hint. And usually there is a reference to Lama Asaya, and that is Karma Chagmi. That's also a hint. So in this one, we do the refuge prayer after the supplication. Again, our hands are at our chest. And it begins, this is a little tricky prayer. It begins Namo, and then it begins Kunchok. And so you say that, let's do it one time, and then I'll explain the next part. It's repeated 3 times in a different way. We just don't say the Namo the second and third time. Let's begin. And this is the tune. I want you to learn this tune. It's very easy. It's also the long Amitabha tune, which is also a Namchu text. Namo Kunja Sundansa Wahasum Yabne Namla Kyatsu Chidro Kun Sanjela Gochir Chanchu Chotu Semge Do. Now the second time, we just skip the Namo. Kunja Sundansa Wahasum Jabne Namla Kyatsu Chidro Kun Sanjela Ochir Janchu Chotu Semge Do Kunja Sundansa Wahasum Jabne Namla Kyatsu Chidro Kun Sanjela Ochir Janchu Chotu Semge. Now you put your hands down. So in your text, you would have a little upside down, like a V, to show your hands went down. But we can go over that another time. Now, this is a very special part of the text. It looks very unassuming. So let's first do the next tiny bit together. On the next 1, 2, 3, 4, the next 6 stanzas, and then we'll talk about it. Adalo netru paye nansakawe chupe chen mendaga sila moche zeme gyurche putsaho. And we have music here. Let's just read it in English. From the expanse of primordial purity, a cloud of offerings, including mandalas, the articles of royalty and goddesses is emanated, filling the earth and the sky. May it be inexhaustible puzaho. When we go back to the tune. Drokunde denduk ngahadra dede nyame tanyon shok. This is the four immeasurables from the point of view of Medicine Buddha. Oh, I forgot I could read my text. I forgot I have these as sort of a cheat notes. So let's go back for a moment. We, at the Kadak, right after refuge, you imagine that the place becomes completely a pure realm, filled with all kinds of amazing enlightened substances that have been there forever. And why do we do this step? To readjust our impure perception and attitude towards ourself or others and the entire environment. So essentially, this is no longer Columbus KTC made out of wood and plaster, etc. It is, we are now sitting, and the entire world is now in a beautiful, enlightened place, made just completely pure. Then after that, we do the four immeasurables in English at the bottom of 7. May all beings be happy and without suffering, and may they abide in unimpaired happiness and equanimity. And these are some of the activities of Medicine Buddha. Now, the next couple of pages are where a lot of the, you might say, action happens in this practice. Hi, Elder, how are you? We'll just wait for 1 second while one of our practitioners comes and joins us. Did you have your text? Okay, great. Yeah. We are, we just started a little after refuge, and we're now coming up to Om Sobawa. So on the handout, we're now on page 2, just to let you know. So in these practices, we have, maybe I'll read my text for a second because Rinpoche has such a beautiful talk about this. We're now going to be beginning the generation stage. There's 2 stages in deity practice or sadhana, generation or creation. I like generation. And the other one is completion. Sometimes you see, there's a beautiful book by Trungpa Rinpoche and Sarah Harding, Creation and Completion. Talks all about how the sadhanas, kind of how they work, and it's all put together. Basically, the entire text, we're generating something all the way to the point at the very end where we dissolve everything. And Trungpa Rinpoche says the main practice in Vajrayana consists of the generation stage and is the cultivation of practice regarding oneself as the deity. From an ordinary point of view, we might think that this is useless. We would think, well, I'm not a deity. What use is there is pretending to become one. In fact, the root of samsara is the habit of impure perception. So by regarding ourselves as a deity, we gradually purify, weaken, and remove that habit and replace it with a positive habit of pure perception. So he also gave an example that normally think I am me, and I'm that, but now we're not yet, but we're slowly moving into becoming Medicine Buddha. So that is the generation stage. And the completion stage, at the very, very end of this entire practice, we're going to just let it dissolve. And then we're going to rest our mind in its true nature for a moment. Okay, so now let's begin. So now we start the generation. Before was kind of the preliminary, the refuge, changing the entire environment, and then doing the 4 immeasurables. So I think we'll do the next part for another half hour or so, and then we'll take a quick break. We're now at Om Sobawa. If you're using the online version, it is page 15, and it is kind of at the very bottom of the page. You see a really long line that says Om Sobawa. I'm going to translate this in a moment, but we're going to read this and actually read the visualization. So there's sort of a certain way to say it, and don't worry, you'll learn. And a lot of us, just to let you know, my favorite pencil is at home, but Oops. But I always have a pencil in my text because it's really nice when you to parse things out. Sometimes that way, when we're all chanting at home, it doesn't matter. But if you want to chant together, then it's easier. And by the way, this is not an advertisement, but our wonderful monastery, Kempo Ujin Tunli and Kempo Sanjay do a beautiful medicine Buddha, I believe, once a month now, maybe once a week, I can't remember. Just go to YouTube, look at KTD Medicine Buddha, and he did teachings during the pandemic for a year almost. But it's really nice because there you get to see them all playing the instruments but now they're using this booklet that's online, all the different prayers. So that way you'll start getting used to it. And we do it here. Well, I don't think we do it here yet because of the pandemic, because of things still, and I'm sorry, I forgot I'm not wearing a mask. But we do it here, or we do it on tomorrow. I will be doing it online at 10 a.m. on Zoom. So please join me for that. Okay, so let's begin. Oma Soba, we sort of talk chant. Oma Sobawa Shuddha Sarva Dharma Sobawa Shuddho Hom. I'll do it again. I'll slightly sing it. Oma Sobawa Shuddha Sarva Dharma Sobawa Shuddho Hom. And now we're going to chant. And when we chanting is always an indicator that we're talking about the description of what's coming up. Tompa ni du yor, tompe nanle tom sundi, tana dugi bojandu, yor pe nandu sengedri, eda so tendu, rani dan dungi so wo sabun hong tingale, men la kudo benderya, tabu uze druwe kuchen, chuku sungi lupa, chaye chojin aruradan, yonan jad, lunze zinba senpe soshi, dorje kiltrungi, jupa kepa ju, dungi ki, Dhamma namla tuwa la sope, Sanjay Judan Jupoti, Degat Semba Chudur, Degyap Jitten Kyongwa, Judan Devun Jempo, Juni Sosor Kordon Chepa, Ushila Yapo, Chenpo Shidan Chenpe. I'm going to stop right here because the rest is a special invitation. So let's go back to look at Om Sobawa. So it's very traditional in a Tibetan sadhana to often have something that's Sanskritized. So Om Sobawa Shuddha Sarvadharma Sobawa Shuddha Hom. You notice there's no translation, right? Because it's Sanskritized. It's Tibetan that took, because the Tibetan language is slightly different from Sanskrit, but it's definitely an honor to that root. So they took this, put it there, but in order to cover their bases, I'm very slangy here, please forgive me. They then will translate it into Tibetan right after this. So I'm going to read to you on the handout, page 2, under Generation Stage B, what the translation of this is. Because this is a pivotal point in this practice. Do you need anything? Oh, I have extra ones in the back. Yeah. We'll just wait a second. So I hope everyone is caught up. So going back, I'm just now looking at the handout on page 2. By the way, I have like 5 handouts for this practice. This is just the first one. I have others on how to do the music, the mudras and everything. So we're on page 2 under B, Om Sobawa at the top. The translation is, not only are all things pure in their nature, but they are in and of themselves the very embodiment of that purity. So it is here where we begin to purify our perception of we've already done it once, but we do a lot of repetition in practices because we're always forgetting we take all of this so solidly, we're constantly being reminded. So we're purifying our perception of the entire world, including our own body and mind. The mantra is a statement as to why the path can lead to the result. So again, it means not only are all things pure in their nature, but they are in and of themselves the very embodiment of that purity. Next, let's read in English what it is after that. It says, everything becomes emptiness. Oh, I'm at the bottom of page 7, the very last sikang, the last phrase. Everything becomes emptiness. Now we're on page 8. From emptiness, these billion worlds arise as the palace of beauty. And on this other practice, I'm on page 16 at the top. Inside, on individual lion thrones, lotuses, and moons. So again, I'll start over again on the page 8. From emptiness, these billion worlds arise as the palace of beauty. Inside it, on individual lion thrones, these are snow lions, lotuses and moons, are the blue hungs, the seeds of myself, and the principle of the front generation. From these arise Menla, who is blue, radiating light rays like lapis lazuli. He is adorned by the 3 Dharma robes. So if you look here, this picture is really beautiful. It doesn't show his throne. Sometimes it shows 2 snow lions in the front that he's seated on. It's actually 8 because there are 2 on all 4 sides. So this is a picture of Medicine Buddha. And I'm going to read again his description, which is on page 8, the second line. From these arise a Menla. Menla is Medicine Buddha in Tibetan. It means medicine. He's blue, radiating light rays like lapis lazuli. He is adorned by the 3 Dharma robes, meaning he wears the robes of a Buddha. So he looks just like he's a blue Buddha. So the 3 robes are, he's wearing a beautiful shawl. He has a skirt on underneath, and he has a skirt kind of wrap. And sometimes he has a slight shirt on also. So I'm not sure of all the robes on here, but he has an underskirt. He has a skirt and underskirt and a shawl. And to this day, that is what Buddhist monks wear. Now, this is very elaborate. This is a more of an elaborate style, just to let you know. And this is the typical, the traditional iconography of Medicine Buddha. In his right hand, he holds an aurora with a mudra of supreme generosity. So his right hand, he's holding, let me look here. In his left hand, he holds a begging bowl in the mudra of even placement. So let's talk about this. His left, is it his left or right? His right hand holds the aurora is a healing plant, also considered myrobalan in English. And he's also holding a begging bowl in the mudra or the hand placement of even placement, but it's inside the begging bowl. Sometimes they show plants. It's filled with medicinal healing nectar. So that's Medicine Buddha. I think he was here. Was he here or here? I can't remember. I'll put him right in front of me. I don't need to see me. That's good. Is that good? Can you see him? Good. So there is a whole art and science, in my opinion, of Buddhist iconography, the proportions and everything. And I really love this picture. I forget who the artist is. I believe it's a Westerner. I think it's Weber. He did a beautiful job. So, so he's adorned by the 3 robes, and we talked about his hand placement, but we haven't talked about where he is yet. So let's talk about that in a moment. We talked at the top about inside these thrones, and I'm going to talk about all of this in a lot more detail in a moment. So he is completely adorned by the major and minor marks. So a Buddha has very specific marks on their hands, on their feet. They're all part of that. So he has all of that on him. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, I forgot. I don't know why. I think sometimes my handout is out of order. Right, so I keep reading. He's completely adorned by the major and minor marks and seated in Vajra posture, meaning his legs are crossed. And on the pedals, so now we're going to start talking about a frontal visualization and a self-generation. So I'm going to go through my handout for one moment. So I want us just to go back because there's a little added story in here that is not, it's implied in here, but Trungpa Rinpoche completely blew it out. And this is one of the few places I really have everyone read together with me. So we're on the handout now on page 2. After Om Sobhava, let's go to see, visualize. All the impure appearances dissolve into emptiness. From within that emptiness, the realm and palace of Medicine Buddha emerge. You visualize 2 palaces, one in front of you, basically up in the sky, and one in the center of where you will be seated. The one in front is slightly above you, and it serves as the residence for the entire frontal visualization. Again, if this is too much, ignore everything I'm going to talk about, the frontal, and just focus on yourself. There is an advantage of doing visualization, of course, for yourself, for your identity, but the frontal also brings incredible blessings, and that's why we do both of them in this practice. The self-visualization, we're now on C3, self-visualization palace. In the center is the throne of golden jewels upheld by snow lions. The frontal palace, in the center is a 16-petal lotus, and in the middle of that is an 8-petaled lotus, and in the center is a lion throne, fully open lotus, moon disc seat. And I'm going to review all this. On top of the moon discs of both the self and frontal is the seed syllable hum. I found a whole bunch of seed syllables yesterday. That's a tree. Oh, here's a hum. Oh, blue hum. Here is a blue hum. So, and I'll go through this in a few minutes over again. But just to tell you, bottom line, you're going to be eventually Medicine Buddha seated where you are right now, looking just like him. And in front of you will be Medicine Buddha, 7 other Medicine Buddhas, his text, 16 Bodhisattvas, and protectors and Nojin chieftains. So basically the entire sky is filled with everyone associated with Medicine Buddha of the past, present, and future. So looking at the handout one more time. So we're just kind of setting up. This is like the precursor. So then things start happening. So looking at the text right now, on page 8, on the second line, you see where it says Hong or Hom, depending if you're Tibetan or do more Sanskrit. I'm trying to find it on the other. I can't find it on the other thing right now. Oh, good. I think it's still on page 16. Yeah. Oh, it's on 16, the second line, because it's Rongni Dangdu Keki Sowo Sabun. This is Hong Tingale. And I'll read their translation. Oh no, it's identical. Okay. Let me keep going. This is where I want to stop because it gets so involved. So Medicine Buddha is not in the room yet. He's going to come in a minute. We're just setting up the whole, basically like interior decorators, taking care of everything but the guests coming in. So in the text, it says on page 8, from these arise Menla, who is blue. We're on the second line. radiating light rays like lapis lazuli, and then it gives all of his description, right? And then at the bottom of 8, it talks about on the petals of the front generation, there's all these other beings and who they're surrounded by. But he's not truly in the room yet. We've not invited him. On page 9, at where it says second line, it says Chempo Shi Dong Chepe Nesum. In Tibetan, the Nesum is where it begins. But in English, it starts at the beginning of 9, line 2. From the 3 syllables, meaning in the forehead is, that you're thinking of is from the forehead, there's an Om, Ahum. I forgot I have all these cards now. I can do all this. I've got to start putting this in my text. Anyway, we have Om, Ahum. In the forehead, Ah and Hum. In 3 places of all, and from the Hung in the heart, light is projected. And this invites countless Yeshipas from their individual Eastern realm. And they dissolve into the self and the frontal generations. So I'm going to keep reading because I haven't gotten there yet. On my book, I'm still on page 8, so let me keep going. All right, let's move to page 3. We'll go over this in a minute. Let's get to the core of this. We need to invite them. So on page, I'm going to read page 37 in the book because this is the best description I've ever seen, ever. This is very involved. So far, we've talked about kind of what's about ready to happen. Okay. This is the invitation. The first step in inviting the wisdom deities is to visualize in the 3 places of the self-visualized medicine Buddha, that's you. In the 3 places visualized and in the front, that's a frontal visualization. And you can also think of this as everyone else that we're going to be visualizing. There is an Om, Ahum. Inside your head, you visualize a white Om, which is the essence of the body of medicine Buddha. Your throat, a red Ah, essence of speech, and your heart, a blue Hum, essence of the mind. And you visualize these in the body of the self-visualized medicine Buddha, in the bodies of the deities visualized in front. When you think that from these syllables, rays of light, particularly blue light from the home in the heart of the frontal and you, radiate. They radiate light, and it invites from this light. So I'll just speak for myself now. So from you visualize this light, and from the frontal, from that home is seated on the moon disk. It just shoots out from you and the frontal to the real medicine Buddha realm, and it invites the medicine Buddhas to come to the room. Now, there's sort of an agreement. If you become a Buddha, if you're asked to come, you come. So we're inviting them to please come. So, and then they actually come, and they actually sort of pause between me and the frontal. And we say certain mantras to welcome them, to ask them to stay, and how to be seated. So we're going to move on from that. I always forget this is the hardest part to teach. So again, I'm on page 3 on the handout. I'm just going to read this under actual invitation, done in order to counteract the doubt that this is more than just a visualization exercise. So, and we're on page 15 in the text, 15.2. Visualize and recite the invitation in the 3 places, the self and the frontal, and possible everyone else. There is a blue home. And it was very specific. Remember, we said there was a throne. There was a throne here. And there is there is a lotus petal on top. Deities don't just sit on a throne, they sit on a lotus petal. And on top of that is a white moon disk. It's a huge white flat disk. White moon because he's a peaceful practice. If it was a wrathful practice, it would be a sun. So it's a white moon disk. And on top of that is a blue home. And from that home where you are and where the frontal is, the light shoots out and makes offerings to all the Buddhas. It comes back to the home. Next, you send light out to all sentient beings that are suffering. So some people give instructions, you send the light up and out and then down and out. It just depends on your mind. And if you're really good, you do it simultaneously. And then in an instant, Medicine Buddha is now in the room, is now you. So let's keep doing the text now, and then you'll understand. We're going to start again on page 8. Let's just do it in English. From emptiness, these billion worlds arise as the palace of beauty. Inside it, on individual lion thrones, lotuses and moons, are blue hongs, the seeds of myself and the principle. So hong is a little syllable. The hong, it looks like in the text on page 8, the very first syllable on line 2. So I'll continue to read again. Are the blue hongs, the seeds of myself and the principle of the front generation. Line 2, page 8. From these arise Menla, who is blue, radiating light rays like lapis lazuli. And then it describes how he looks. So in that little piece was what we just did. We just sent the light out and up and down and out, and you then are Medicine Buddha. But you're kind of Medicine Buddha stage 1. So we'll do that because we do this one more time. And so we go through his beautiful description, what he's holding in his hands, what he's wearing. He has a begging bowl. And at the bottom of page 8, he's completely adorned by the major marks and is seated in the Vajra posture. Now, let's just think about the front. Up above in front of us on the petals of the front generation, there's the 7 Medicine Buddhas. So basically, just looking at me, Medicine Buddha is in front of us. And if it's easier for you to think of you and Medicine Buddha, you're both Medicine Buddha, fine. But be reminded, he's surrounded by 7 other Medicine Buddhas. They're all part of this lineage. And the 8th petal are all the text, everything that has ever been written, all of these from the sutras, from ages past from other Buddhas, they're on the 8th petal between us and Medicine Buddha in front. So that's the frontal. The self-visualization, we are Medicine Buddha seated on a throne. If you want to be very detailed, you're actually in a palace with 4 gates. There's 4 guardians. It's very involved. But today, I mostly just want us to think about we are Medicine Buddha and there's a Medicine Buddha in front of you now. But we're just baby Medicine Buddha for a moment. Let's keep going in the text. This is why when I first taught this, I didn't realize there was a second part of this. I'm so sorry. Have I lost people online? You guys okay? It's so much going on. And I love what Trungpa Rinpoche says at one point. He said, you know, if this is too much, you don't even have to worry about where Medicine Buddha is. Just think wherever he is, just send him, just thank him and do his mantras. So I love that. So for some of us, I know at work, I like to think of Medicine Buddha in the hospital. Sometimes I like to consider the entire hospital is transformed in his realm, but I don't go into any detail, you know, just, I think the most important thing is over time, it becomes easier, all the details, but you don't need them at all in some ways. All right, so let's keep going. We are now on page 9. And I've lost this again, let's see. This is where I didn't finish up last night. Oh, it says it's page 15, but I think that's wrong. Maybe that is right. Okay, so now on page 9. Yes. we do a second type of invitation. So just kind of looking here. On the handout, on, let's see, page 9, it says actual invitation of the wisdom deities. So we talked about the Oma home, and then it talks about that they arrive in the sky between both of us, and we actually say a mantra. So let's now, for a moment, go back and just chant the text in Tibetan and then in English. So we'll start on page 9. At the, let's see, I want to go where there's chanting. We'll start on page 9 on the 3rd line at home. Om Benla Gela La Tsoma Lupa Nidu Chendrin Jin Jin Watu So Paden De Din Da La Wan Chokor Lodun Se Ye Baje Sao Du So Namo Mahabeganze Saparivara Benza Samaya Sa, we would do music. Benza Samaya Tiktrelen Om Hum Tram Ria Abhikensa Om. So there's a lot going on right there. So we're going to read the handout for a moment. No, let's read the English first. This is really great. On bottom of 9, at home on the last line. There's a little pause and you see home. It said that they dissolve into self in the frontal generations. Home, I invite the 8 Menlaw brothers and all deities without exception. Please rain down great splendor, that means bless me. Bestow supreme empowerment upon me, whom I am worthy and faithful. Please dispel false guides and obstacles to longevity. Now there's 2 mantras. Namo Maha Bekanze. Sapari Wara, Misinara, Benza Samayat Za. Then there's music, and then there's Benza Samayat Tiktra Len. And following that, we have an actual empowerment by the 5 medicine Buddhas and their consorts. Om, Hum, Tram, Ri, A are the 5 seed syllables of the different Buddhas. Abhikensa Hum. Okay, so after this part, we'll take a break. So looking at the handout, page 3 still, under actual invitation of wisdom deities, under B. Well, we'll just read the whole thing. You visualize that in the 3 places of the self and frontal medicine Buddha, and if possible, all the other deities in the retinue in front of us. And from the blue home invites the deities of the mandala from their Buddha fields. We talked about the Oma home, and they arrive in the sky between both visualizations. So hovering in front of us right now are all the medicine Buddhas, or you can just have it be one. They arrive in the sky between both the frontal and the self, and you say 2 mantras which seal and reinforces their invitation. And the translation of both is through the power, and it's right here, through the power of your unchanging commitment to the welfare and liberation of beings. Please dissolve inseparably into me and remain with me stably. So the first mudra is called, and I put in here, it's Dugya. It's the assembly mudra. And basically we're saying, and the translation has to do with reminding them of their commitment as Buddhas to please come when they're invited and to remain separately, your arms crossed with your left arm inside and your right on the outside. So it's kind of done Namo Maha Bekansi Sapari Benza Samaya Za Za. And then there's music, because we're so happy they've come. And then we say Benza Samaya Tikjolen. And this is often to be seated, but it's really to please come and stay. You just take your hands and you scoop in, then offer them this beautiful seat as eloquently as you can, which I'm not. So again, we ask them through the power of your unchanging commitment to the welfare and liberation of all beings, please dissolve inseparably into me and remain with me stably. In the dissolution, you think that all of the invited deities, reminded of their commitment and with their compassion, dissolve both into the self and frontal deities. Think that your body, speech, and mind visualize as Medicine Buddha, and the body, speech, and mind of Medicine Buddha have become indivisible. So before we had invited them to come, then we actually do a lot more. During this, we're saying these mantras, we're actually visualizing them coming in at that point. They're already here, kind of hovering in the sky. When you're saying Namo Maha, and if you can't remember the mudra, don't worry, just put your hands in prayer. Namo Mahabe Kanzi Sapa Diwara Benza Samaya Zaza. You have music, and then Benza Samaya Tikcholan, please stay here with me and with all sentient beings. So I think that's a good place to stop. Have I stymied everyone? I'm sorry. Some of you, it's probably so easy, but for me, this is where I have, I always get a little tied up. And so I think we'll take a 10-minute break. So thank you, everyone. Did that make sense? Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I wanted to thank you again for your patience today. I haven't taught anyone live in, what, 2.5 years? I'm kind of doing this today. But thanks to the kindness of Don for putting this, taking care of all of that part. I don't have to worry about that. And I also offer all the merit during the pandemic of all the people that kept us running and doing classes. I remember during the pandemic, I think the first Medicine Buddha class, we had 50 or 60 people. They were from all over the world. A lot of people from New Zealand, Australia, Europe. And I'm kind of happy that there aren't now, because that means that life has kind of gone back to the way it was before, and the centers are opening up because so many centers were not open. So just to do a 5-second wrap up before we move forward in this practice, we started with a supplication to all of those in the past that have had anything to do, including Medicine Buddha, in the supplication. Then we took refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. We, for a moment, changed the environment so that we were in a completely pure environment. We had the and then we moved on and did the 4 immeasurable prayer, particularly from the point of view of Medicine Buddha, where normally we say, may all beings gain happiness and may they be free from suffering. We're very specific in that for any kind of illness and a mental problem. Then next, we started to get ready for bringing the deities to the room. We did the Om Sabhava mantra, clearing everything out. And then we began the visualization. First, essentially, the practice really talks about the location and the setting, which was where we are, a palace, but mostly just thinking about we're seated on a lotus throne, or there was a throne upheld by 8 Medicine Buddhas, a lotus, and then on top of that was the blue seed syllable hum facing forward. And the frontal visualization was the same, but much more elaborate. I'll speak one time about it, with the throne with the lotus on top. But then basically there were 8 other lotuses encircling that, which later will become the 7 Medicine Buddhas in the text. And below that were other thousands and thousands of lotuses of beings that protect this lineage, of the protectors and the Nujin chiefs, and their hordes of beings. And then the sky is also filled with everyone
that has any kind of connection with this practice. It's very, very special. And after that, bringing the deity to the room, first we did the preliminary visualization of us, kind of stage one, where we visualized from that blue seed syllable. I'll just focus on the self-visualization. Light and the blue seed syllable. So the mantra of Medicine Buddha is, it's 22 syllables. It's very long. Tea ta om bekanze bekanze, maha bekanze raja samugate soha. And the seed syllable in the middle, this is at his heart, this beautiful mantra. And the seed syllable, which is basically the deity in the form of sound, whom it was seated above those main lotuses. And then the light went up and out to the Buddha realms, especially to Medicine Buddha's realm, came back to the home, and then the light went down and out, making offerings and praying for all sentient beings, sending the blessings there also. And in that moment, when they come back instantly, and the teachers always say, they just click their fingers, instantly, you are now Medicine Buddha, and Medicine Buddha is in front of you, if you wish. Then the text beautifully describes all of your features. And then next, in order to truly have the blessings of Medicine Buddha and to truly have us be Medicine Buddha, and as a side note, probably because we didn't believe it the first time that we're Medicine Buddha, we then again, as Medicine Buddha, from my heart, that blue home light projects out and invites all the deities from Medicine Buddha's realm. And in that moment, instantly, they arrive in front of me, between me and the frontal visualization. And then what do? We say a beautiful mantra to them, basically reifying their commitment to help all sentient beings, and to please join us, and then to please be seated and stay here with us. And at that same moment, they have dissolved completely into you. To make it even a stronger point, so we truly believe this. This text is so small and simple and profound. We then receive an empowerment from the 5 Buddha family and their consorts. And this is the part where people are always, so sort of back to back, we have 3 hand gestures, or much more than 3 you have to learn, if you wish to. So last night, for the first time since I've ever taught this, I finally really wrote down this part. So we are now in the text, so we're going to have the empowerment. So so then the empowerment, we're completely going to be imbued with all of the blessings. We've already gotten that from Medicine Buddha, but now we're getting it from the 5 primordial Buddhas and their consorts. And we will be filled with that. And after that, what do? We start making offerings. And that's the part where I'm going to fly over, because we only have basically an hour left. And I like to spend a lot of time talking through this flow. I think it's important when you learn this practice to start making it a real flowing, organic event, not just reading these little words, because these words are just little. This is based on so many teachings. This is very, very condensed. So I want you to, when you start practicing, to relax with it and just to feel that beautiful flow that is happening, especially when we bring the deity to the room. Is so incredible. First, we take care of the place, then we and there are different terms, and I'll bring it up at the end. There's special Tibetan words for the first Medicine Buddha we were, and then the second, when we truly are blessed by Medicine Buddha. So let's move on to the text now. We are on the handout, we are on page 3 still, in the very middle of the page. It says 10.2.1. So that's where we are in the text. But let me get the other text up. And we are at the seed syllable Om Tram Hri A.
And I have the little cards for it, but I don't have a method to put them. Next time I think I'll bring tape. Never thought I could do it this way, kind of. But I'll show them in a second. So we have that. Actually, the seed syllables are right in front of me. What am I talking about? I just realized it's right in the text. Okay, so let me bring up this other text, which is no longer there. There it is. And we are now on page 18. Looks like line 3. After it says Benza Samayatik Dralen, it says Om Hum Tramri Ah. So those are the 5 Buddhas, and they're not mentioned who they are in here, but of course, and part of that whole statement we say, it includes Abhikensa Hum. Abhikensa is, excuse me, Sanskritized Tibetan for empowerment. So, and it reifies this is an empowerment. So I'm going to read the notes for me on page 3. In the middle is where it says empowerment. The purpose for the empowerment is a remedy for one's obscurations, wrongdoing, and conceptualization. So visualization from the 3 places of the front and self. Remember that Om Ahom? This time we do a 3rd invitation, and we invite the 5 males and female Buddhas that are together there, and they are, I'll just say it again. We invite the 5 male Buddhas of the 5 families, the 5 Buddha families, with their retinues from the pure realms. The 5 Buddhas are each holding a precious vase filled with wisdom nectar. We would also call it Amrita. So it's just beautiful vases they're holding full, encrusted in jewels. And they pour this into you as the self-visualized medicine Buddha through the aperture at the center of your head, back here. Some would say it's not exactly, it's sort of 8 finger widths back, so it's kind of right back here. There's a tiny bump there. That's where they're going to pour it. This is an important point to start learning about when we do POA and other practices towards end of life. Always nice to know about that chakra there. So they're going to pour it through our head at that point. Of course, this is all made of almost like liquid light. And as they pour it into you, we do the mudras. And so, for the Om, it's Vairochana. I'm not going to talk about them. Trungpa Rinpoche very nicely speaks of each one, their activities. The Hum is Akshobhya, Tram is Ratna Sambhava, Ri is Amitabha, who we're all pretty much familiar with, and A is Amoghasiddha. And visualize that this wisdom nectar fills your entire body, and you think that it purifies all the wrongdoing, obscurations, defilements of any kind of your body, speech, and mind. And I know some of you are going to say, but Cathy, we're already Buddhas, we're medicine Buddha. Well, if that's your vision, that's wonderful. But most of us need to be reminded again that we forgot about that. So let me see if I can do this real quick here. I think I put this here. This is good. Phones are so handy as markers. So the way it looks is for each of these, and it's nice to learn this if you ever do other empowerments. For instance, we don't do this in Amitabha, but this is right in Amitabha also. So we do this all above our head. And the first one is Om, and that is Vairochana. And I love the first time I taught this, I remember seeing the whole class all sitting there like that. And the middle finger, is that your middle finger? Yeah. There you go, the middle, the 3rd finger. Good, good, very good. This is, and you say it out loud, Om. And Hum is index finger, is at the forehead. Excuse me. Tram Ratna Sambhava is our ring finger, the 4th, and this is hard for me, the ring finger. And this goes above our right ear. And then Amitabha, Hum is Sri, all the way behind us. Well, I can't go that far back. So you just make a gesture like you're going back further. And Amoghasiddhi is your little finger, and you go over your left ear, right there, sort of above it a little bit. And that's it.
but that's the 5. So while you're doing all of that, trying to remember what you were doing, then you say, Abi Kensa Hong. So you actually visualize that is coming through you. So this is actually a mudra where it actually pours down into you. And then you click. So everyone got that, right? So last night I was trying to practice this. So home, middle finger. So om, middle finger, home, index, trom, ring over the right ear. Hri is the thumb behind, little finger, left ear. Abi Kensa, home. So if you can't remember it, maybe just put your hands in prayer and then do Abi Kensa, home. Okay? So at this point, we're starting the offerings right after that. And it's really nice sometimes to look at the text so that one reason why we still use Tibetan text is because this has thousands and thousands and thousands of people have done this practice and looked at the same words, and they're so full of blessings and connection. So it's very nice in this where it says Om Hum Chamri Ah. Right above that is, and these are the actual colors, is Om. Here's a white card. This is Om, the Tibetan Om, not a Sanskrit Om. And then Hum is blue. That was Ratnas Akshobhya. I didn't even know I had these. Here is Tram Ratnasambhava. Then Ri is Amitabha, red. Remember Amitabha? And then A is Amoghasiddhi. That was green. So those are the 5. Maybe we should have a talk sometime about the 5 Buddha families. That would be nice. So those are the 5 Buddha families. So just to back up. So in order that you really now, who are you now? Who are you? Medicine Buddha. We are now Medicine Buddha. We have consecrated the place. We visualized what the setting looks like. We then had the blessings of first becoming Medicine Buddha, stage 1. And then sort of stage 2 is much more elaborate, where we actually visualize the deities. We were sort of like prepared, right? I felt like the first stage was the dress rehearsal. Then the real Medicine Buddha came, and then we received the special blessings when he was saying the mantras. There's 2 special mantras. And then we had the empowerment of the 5 Buddha families. So, and at that moment in there, it talks about our wrongdoing and obscurations purified. So if there's anything else that's in the way of you visualizing yourself as Medicine Buddha, that was cleared away. Now we do beautiful offerings, which we will chant, but I'm not going to teach on because I want to spend the rest of the time talking about the mantra of during the actual mantra, what we do. Medicine Buddhas, this practice itself, of course, is full of so many tools for us to change our identity. The mantra is where the work is in this practice. So let's keep chanting now. So now, trying to find, I thought I found it. I don't know if I lost it again. So now we are going to begin at home Meitok. I know I found it for a minute there. It's a little harder the way this is laid out for my eyes. Here it is. We're now on page 18 again. Yay. And it's right after we did Om Hum Tramri Abi Kensa Hum. But I think maybe we should back up because I've talked a lot, but we haven't really practiced this a lot. So let's start at the bottom of page 9. So now I've got to find that. Hold on. At home, Menla. I'm still looking. Oh, good. That is page 17. At 1, 2, at second from the bottom. It starts at the line home Menla Chege. Okay, again, we're using the tune. And if you ring a bell in Dorje, of course, you would have that. I think for the music, if there is any interest, let me know or let Lama Cathy know. Because I teach a whole other class on the music. And I think that would be nice for you to know. Even if you do the practice at home and you only have, not only, but if you have a bell and dorje. At home, I have a drum also. I'm always making sure my neighbor's out of town and then I use my drum. And some of us have cymbals, or you could have a beautiful little conch shell, just blow that during the music. So in the music class, I would teach you just simple things, how to mark your text, where the music falls, and how to play that instrument. It would be very simple. Okay, so now I'm done with that commercial. Now let's begin, and we're going to start at home on the bottom of page 9. And it's the same tune. I'm going to say something else. When we chant, a real tip is we often couple words, phrases together. So let's count. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 9 phrases most of the time in this text. Sometimes there's 7, but if you're chanting, so it kind of goes menla. I'm exaggerating. Menla, chege, latso, ma, lupa. So we often do 2, 2, 2, 3. Here it's slightly abbreviated because of the style of the sound itself, but things do change so it's menla, chege, latso, ma, lupa. So it's nice to learn. That's how we all learn these, is to know there's a lot of subtle coupling going on. Let's begin. Om menla jege la so ma lupa nejir chin den ji chin wa tu so ka den de den da la wan chu kor lo just say ye bar che sa tu so namo mahabhekanse saparivara benza samaya zaza Benta Samaya Tiktralan Empowerment Om Om Tramri Abhichinsa Om Om Meja Dubomar Mehedri Jase Homola So Ajuta Chirore Jaju Dakilala Chupa Bodhaja Soniso Parshok Argam Bhajam Pupe Dube Alurki Gende Nivede Shabda Rupa Shabda Yende Rasa Saparshetratitsa Undrashitsa Otse Zegede Sochokyo Poyungar So Dagilalachu Babo So Nyon So Parsho Mangalamarta Siddhivum. So we put our hands in prayer wherever there's a Sanskrit phrase, and then we put our hands back down. Om Trashitsa Votat Yede Sochokyo Bumba So Dagilalachu Babo Senchen So Niso Parsho Mangalam Kumbha Om Doyan Sawarin Shendun Sochokyo Norbo So Dagilalachu Babo Dani Soniso Parsho Om Mani Om. And now, if you have a mala, or if you know the mandala mudra, we're going to do that, because I just want to keep going. We can show it later. And by the way, Lama Yeshe Gamsa does a great description in this book. Hong Kungi Sawari Rahavling
Rirab Linchin Lentren, Che Daki La La Chu, Babo, Soni Yonsu So Parsho, Om Rena Mandala Hum. Om Daki Jidendri, Shahaki, Deshe Kula Kutruso, Lala Jimami, Ngahayan, Drifted Tape Dendragi, Om Sarvata Tagata, Abhike Gate Samaya, Shriye Om. Right at this part, we're washing and drying the Buddha and clothing him. Om Reka Chandri Den Bahayi Yahweh Kunichi Wargi Lala Jimami Nahayang Dugnatrawe Tendragi Om Kaya Vishodhani Om Reka Chandri Den Bahayi Yahweh Kunichi Wargi Lala Jimami Ngahayan Dugnatrawe Tendragi Om Kaya Vishodhani Om Nasa Sedenyo Mihidi Yahweh Kula Sovar Yi Kula Silvami Ngahayan Tatam Pelwe Tendragi Om Menzel Watre Now the praises, hands are still in prayer. Om Kudo Bendur Yairi Wodra Drawa Samchen Niki Dunga Sal Chanchut Samba Kiki Kor Vinchin Mensin La La Chatsa To Selerita Sersa Ya Yen Me Chorjak Yanso Chulo Shakya Tu tambe chudan samba chudron so kunjorin chen sumla chatsa to sada kachin kachin chu chunchu nujun de ponchuni yon dan che lala mingiri zindran so che tu se mingi lala chatsa to. So at that point, there's a very nice music, and we've just finished all the offerings and then the praises. And now we're getting ready for the actual mantra. I should say for a moment, many of the offerings, if you are a Ngundro practitioner, or you could always look it up in a book about Ngundro, those are very much different articles that are offered during the mandala practice. So if you're familiar with that, you'll know that. But at a certain point, at the very end of the offerings, we actually offer washing the medicine Buddha and then drying him and then clothing him with new robes. And this is very much because this practice now is very much of a Vajrayana or Tantrayana practice, but from ancient times, this was a sutric practice, which is where they actually, and I have met medicine Buddhist practitioners who actually have a small medicine Buddha here that they're bathing. So that is an homage, I feel, which is very beautiful to that. And also that's a very, very auspicious event to do. So at this point now, we're getting ready for the mantra. And we just chant this line. Daktung Tukar, we're in the bottom, sorry, the bottom of page 14. And here in the online text, which I hope everyone has. Oh, I forgot there's something new now. I totally forgot about this. Okay, so since we have a little time, I should talk about this. What's so beautiful about this new online text, which I'll make sure all of you have if you don't already have it. I'm talking to the people in-house.
there are some special inserts during the pandemic that were Kempa Urgent at KTD Monastery taught on these 7 other medicine Buddhas. So there is an actual insert of that. And some of you got that a long time ago. And so it's actually here. And this is where it's inserted right now before the mantra. So, do you have that handout? So you two can read it. Don, do you want to borrow mine and you can read it? It's very beautiful. I think we have this on KTD website, just to let you know, or KTC, I'm sorry, website. But if you have the online text, it's right in there. If I can find it.
Hey, Lhamo.
So we just finished in the text at Tutsi Mengi Lala Chaksal Tu, which is, oh good, on page, I'm talking online people, 23. Now we're on page 24. And this is what it says. Here, I'm going to read this one today. We'll read this, it's very beautiful. Prostrating in offerings to and taking refuge in the 7 medicine Buddhas, brothers, and Shakyamuni, the recitation of their names. So just to let you know, Shakyamuni Buddha is one of the 7 medicine Buddhas, that the extra ones. So there's a lot of repetition of this, but it's very beautiful. So I don't know a tune, so I'm just going to kind of make one up because it's kind of, I'm just looking to see where my other, I thought I had another handout on this. Well, I'll just use this. Chomden Day, we'll just sort of say it. Chomden Day, Daishin Shepa, Dra Chompa, Yanda Par, Sope Sanjay, Sele Par, Yon, Drak Pal Yi, Gyapo La, Chaksalo, Chudu, Kyatsu, Chio. So it's going to be exactly the same, but each time it's said, it's different in a little different parts because it's the specific name of that medicine Buddha. So here we'll read it. I prostrate, making offerings and go for refuge to the Bhagavan Tathagata, Arhat Samyak Sam Buddha, King of renown, glory of excellent name. So that's his name is King of renown, glory of excellent name. Then the next one, Chomden De Deshin Shepa, Dra Chompa, Yantar Part Zope Sanjay, Rinpoche Da Dawadan, Pema Ratu, Genpa, Kepa, Zishi Dra Yanki, Yapola, Chasalo, Chodu Kya Suchiyo. I prostrate and make offerings to go for refuge to the Bhagavan Tathagata Arhat, Samyak Sam Buddha, King of melodious sound, brilliant radiance of ability, adorned with jewels, moon, and lotus. And then he gives a Sanskrit name at the bottom. Let's do the next one. Chomden de Deshin Shepa, Dra Champa Yandarpa Zobe Sanjay, Ser Zang Dreame Rinchen, Nanto Drukpala Chaksalo Chudu Kyapso Chio. I prostrate and make offerings and go for refuge to the Bhagavan Tathagata, Arhat Samyak Sam Buddha, immaculate, excellent gold, appearance of jewel who accomplished the moral conducts. The next, Chomden De Deshin Shepa Drachamba Yandapar, Zope Sanjay Nyanyan Mecho Pala Chatsalu Chudu Kyasu Chiwo. I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge to the Bhagavan, Tathagata Arhate Samyat, Sam Buddha, supreme glory or free of suffering. The next, Chomden De Deshin Shepa Drachampa Yandapar Zope Sanjay Chudra Gyatso Yongla Chasa Lo Chudu Kyasu Chio. I prostrate, making offerings, and go to refuge to the Bhagavan, Tathagata Arhate Samyat Sambuddha, melodious ocean of proclaimed Dharma. Chomden De
Teishin Shepa Jajampa Yantarpa Zope Sanji Chigyatso Chogilo Nampa Ropa Ngompa Kepe Yapola Jasalo Chuda Kaso Chio. I prostrate making offerings to go to refuge to the Bhagawan, to Tathagata Arahate Samyak Sambuddha, King of complete omniscience, he who delights in the ocean of Dharma with supreme intellect. The last, there's two more. Chonden Dede Shin Shepa Drajamba Yantarpa Zope Mingila Bendur Yai Uki Yapola Jasalo Chudu Kyasu Chio. I prostrate making offerings to go to refuge to the Bhagawan Tathagata, Arhate Samyak Sambuddha, medicine guru, light of sapphire. And the last, this is Shakyamuni Buddha, I believe. How come it doesn't go Chomden Day? I don't know if Tompa is supposed to be there. Does it say Chomden Day or Tompa? At the last phrase. Oh, well, we'll say it. Tompa Chomden Day, Daishin Shepa Jajumpa, Yantarpar, Zope Sanje, Yawa Shakya, Tupala, Chaksalo, Chudu Kyasuchio. I prostrate and make offerings to go for refuge to the Shastra Bhagawan, Tathagata, Arhate, Samyak Sambuddha, Victorious Shakyamuni. So those are the 8 medicine Buddhas, or 7. I think there were actually 8, weren't there? 1, 2, 3. Yep, there were 8. So those are all the medicine Buddhas. And now we are on page 24. I'm getting ready to do the mantra. So it is now a tradition at our lineage that we're starting to say that. And if you ever need a handout, just contact me if you have a pecha and you need to get that. And we should thank Kempo Sanjay La. He's the one that got that all put together and finally put in here and printed it out. Okay, so now the work, let's begin. We'll read on the bottom of 14, the last line. The hung in the heart of the self in front, I'm sorry. I should also tell the people, other people, page 24 at the top. And for the paper, it's page 14 at the bottom under Dakpun. So this is for the recitation of the mantra. Often there's a little instruction. The home in the heart of the self and front generations is surrounded by a mantra garland. That's all it says. I love that. And then the mantra is the following. Teata Om Bekanze Maha Bekanze Raja Samugate Soha. So there are many ways to visualize this. The main way that Trungpa Rinpoche emphasizes is the descent of blessings. And then we also talk about Karma Chagme's mini medicine Buddha. So just to let everyone know, we're almost at the complete end of the entire practice. We only have this and then a final ending prayer and dissolution. So this is where most of us do a lot of the work. I highly recommend memorizing the Medicine Buddha mantra. And let me go through. I have a whole sheet on this, but I think this one is very good. So this is on page 5, where it says mantra. I put a note to myself to read this, so I'll read it. This is happening first with both the front, the self and the frontal visualization. We each visualize in the center of our heart, because we are Medicine Buddha, and the heart of the frontal Medicine Buddha. Remember that. So I've never gone through so we are made of blue light. We're not solid. In our forehead, we have a white Om. Is it white, red, blue, a red Ah, and a blue Hum in the heart. Also in the heart center of the body, if you would think of a circle, or some people say like a Hawaiian lei, there are all these little pin cushions, and I'll read Trungpa Rinpoche's part in the book on the mantra. I'm just looking for the page. And he really describes it very nicely. But essentially, just for everyone to first learn, in the heart center always is where the mantra garland, it's called a mantra garland, like a flower garden garland. And they either, the letters will face out or they'll face in, if you have like that much detail. I think most of us are lucky if we just think there's something going on here and then light is projected. So the mantras are facing out, so they will be going in counterclockwise direction. But in the it begins, here's the home, and here is te ta ombe, oh, it's going out. Te ta ombe kanze bekanze ma bekanze la samakati soha. Does not spin, but a lot of light comes off of that. So that's how it is with us and with the frontal medicine Buddha, all the other medicine Buddhas, and all the Bodhisattvas have this in their heart. So, but for a complete beginner, just think of yourself a little bit. But this one, there's kind of something's going on. So you notice, again, the instruction are that there is a mantra garland in the heart. So there's a lot more instruction. And this is why you need the instructions, the tree, because this is concise on purpose. So if somebody walked by and read your text over your shoulder and they had to have permission, I mean, this is just one reason, that they had to have permission, well, they couldn't just sort of do something that might cause problems. But it's mostly because it's very detailed, and that's why there's entire books written on this. So again, I'm going to say this again. Visualize in the center of our heart, where we are Medicine Buddha, right? Who are we? Medicine Buddha, everyone. And so there is, in our very heart center, there is a white moon disc lying flat in the center of everyone's body at the level of the heart. Standing upright upon the disc is the seed syllable of the deity, the blue hum, representing the deity's mind or wisdom. Surrounding the hum is the garland of the mantra from which rays of light emanate. I wrote that it was arranged clockwise, is that right? I think it's counterclockwise. You read it, so they're standing outside, they're facing outside. And so again, in the heart center is a moon disc surrounded by all these little lotuses and little flowers, and also because they're not just standing there bare and arid, they're very sacred. And so that is the mantra in the heart center. It's made of light, blue light primarily, and it emanates a great deal of blue light. So for me, the self-visualization from the home and all of that mantra in my heart, multicolored rays of light shoot out towards the frontal, the one in front. These rays of light strike the heart of the frontal, arousing compassion. This causes the rays of multicolored light to emerge from the mantra garland in the home. So then the frontal does the same thing to the Medicine Buddha realm. He sends light rays. So from us, we send light rays from our heart, the Medicine Buddha in the front, and he does it directly to the Medicine Buddha realm. These rays of light proceed to the Buddha field of Medicine Buddha. On top of these rays of light are offering goddesses, making innumerable offerings to Medicine Buddhas, all of them, and the rest of the mandala. And these offerings arouse their compassion and remind them of their vows to benefit. So then we have a blessing of body, speech, and mind. It showers down upon you and dissolves into the self and the frontal. And let me see if I describe what that is, because I don't think I described it. Yes, I did. Okay. So we do a little, before we do the mantra, I want to make sure you got this down. So we already talked about that. So let's move on to the next page in the handout, the very last page. So we have a blessing of body, speech, and mind. So basically, we've already sent our request out to the Medicine Buddha in front. He sent it out to Medicine Buddha realm. And this is the response from Medicine Buddha realm. We get a blessings, first a blessing of body. The sky is now filled with an innumerable amount of Medicine Buddhas floating in the sky. They're all made of light, all different sizes. So first, that's the blessing of the body. Takes in the form of Medicine Buddha and his retinue, raining down, dissolving into you as the self and the frontal, and grants blessings. The speech blessing, in the form, remember that mantra garland? Multicolored, rains down from pure realm of Medicine Buddha into the self in the front and grants you blessing of speech. Some people actually visualize it goes into your throat, but it's really the blessing of speech. The last is mind. Remember Medicine Buddha's bowl filled with healing substances? They again rain down and dissolve into you and the frontal. And when receiving their blessing, focus on whatever is afflicting you as a human. Is it your body, your speech, your mind? Trungpa Rinpoche said, are you lacking compassion? Are you lacking certain qualities you want to develop? Imagine that's healing that. So that's what we first do when we do this practice. Then after that, a lot of people spend quite some time doing that. After that, you as Medicine Buddha can then, from your heart, in 360 degrees, send out healing light to everyone in the entire universe. So that is the second part of the mantra. The third part, if you know, or if you yourself, oh, and you can do this for animals also. So if you know someone who's very sick, or if you have a specific problem, there's a shortcut, a shorter version. You imagine Medicine Buddha. Trungpa Rinpoche sometimes says the size of the first joint of your finger, sometimes forefinger width, made of blue light, enters your crown and goes to wherever you need healing. And goes, say it's my hand, will go down through my crown to my hand and just stay there, sending out this liquid blue healing ambrosia. It's actually liquidy, and it comes through, or if like you're older, just I could kind of, let's see, both knees. I mean, you can go for other parts of your body. Or if you feel motivated and there's someone very close in your life that needs healing, they don't even have to be there. Visualize where they need healing and do that. But most of the practice, Trungpa Rinpoche really told me many times, don't just pray for people you love and know that this practice is to be done for absolutely everyone throughout the universe. That is because we are becoming bodhisattvas, and that is our focus. And it's very easy to pray for people near us. But at the same time, it's very important to become healthy. And that's why the tiny medicine is very personal. I think that is so easy to do. So let's spend some time now. We have a half hour. Oh, we're doing good today. And why don't we do Medicine Buddha together and just do the mantra now. Hold on. Excuse me. And I will sort of say, all right, so first we're going to do the mantra. I just ate some walnuts. I should never eat walnuts before I talk. They always get my throat. Hold on. So when we say the mantra now, I know some of you may have learned this differently. I'm sorry. That was pretty good. I felt it came over. As we say this mantra, we're going to do it in 3 stages. First, from our heart, and even so at home, if you have time, take a moment, read in Rinpoche's book, or look at the handout for a moment, and remind yourself, first, how we're going to get the blessings. So we're sending light from your heart, from the blue home, multicolored light to Medicine Buddha in front of you, and then he will send it to Medicine Buddha's realm. If you're doing this practice all by yourself and you don't have anyone in front, just to Medicine Buddha's realm. And they come back, it's called a descent of blessing. As they're floating in the sky, the actual forms of Medicine Buddha enter the body. And then the mantra, the beautiful, more like, it looks like a little Hawaiian lace of mantras entering you, especially blessing your throat. And then the last one is the blessing your mind. The Tibetans consider the heart the mind. So the last one, blessing your heart center in the form of begging bowls filled with beautiful healing substance. These are all made of light and they can't hurt you. They can't bump into you. They're just entering into you. And let's do that for a few minutes. So first, we'll chant it slowly together. And then at home, you can chant this at any rate you like. Khenpo Rinpoche always said, and by the way, last week was his anniversary a few days ago. So I feel very blessed to have him as my guru. He died just 2 years ago. Was it 3 years ago? 3, I think. 3 years ago. So, because I feel, we all feel him still, and he's so powerful because he really built this building. I will tell one story before we go on. I'll never forget, about a year before he died, Lama Karma said to Lama Tom from here said, I'd like you to go with me to an event at the monastery. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, just come. So I went, okay. And I was most shocked to find the Karmapa was there, maybe 1,000 Chinese and Tibetans, a few lamas. It was just packed. It was multi-function weekend. But His Holiness, the Gyalwa Karmapa, whole function of it was to bless Khenpo Rinpoche for long life. He actually stood on his throne and read I've never seen that before, I had goosebumps. And then he got down very eloquently and very tenderly fed Khenpo Rinpoche different healing substances, yogurt. He put red tilak on his forehead of, I forget what that is. I forget the name of it now. Vermilion. It was just so amazing, the whole process of what he did. And I would stand in line with people that had never met Khenpo Rinpoche before. They were from China, but they had heard of him. And they wanted to go there to get his blessing. And a part of me thought, but this is my teacher, And then I realized, isn't this amazing how here was a room of, not even just a room, a place of over 1,000 people. I might have known 10 people there. I used to go there and know everyone. That says so much about Khenpo Rinpoche. But the most amazing part of the story was Lama Lodros pulled me aside and said, see that table over there where they're selling all those things? And I looked over, it was Khenpo Rinpoche's bell and dorji, his personal one, his damaru. They were being sold for an amazing amount of money. Underneath it said for Columbus KTC. So even though Rinpoche might not be in his body, his blessings are still here, obviously. And then I got a tap on the shoulder from Lama Karma, who was just recently here and gave the Medicine Buddha empowerment. He said, come with me. I went upstairs and Khenpo Rinpoche had a 15-minute break in the ceremony. And he had us do a recording for the center on, he wanted to send a message to the center. And he handed me something. And in the car, I opened it. He said, don't lose it. It was $10,000 that he had just been given, wrapped in this silk brocade. It was from the Karmapa. It was still wrapped. And so we owe so much to our teachers and all the people from around the world that have built this center. So when we think of doing Medicine Buddha, remember all of them also, because whoever gave a penny, even if someone picked up a piece of trash, we should think of there is no limit to the amount of people that need prayer these days. We know this. I'm preaching to the choir, I know. But we're also tied together. So you have no idea someday
what work your mantra might be doing for someone. We never know, but we should just always be grateful for this is a gift that we have. So if you walk away from here today and you can't remember anything and you can't even remember the mantra, but you remember this blue Buddha, whenever you're in need, he is always there to help, always. And we're all becoming medicine Buddhas. So let's do the mantra now. And at this point, we will visualize, first of all, us strengthening our identity as medicine Buddha by receiving the descent of blessings. So we'll begin. Teata om veganze veganze maha veganze radza samugate soha. Teata om veganze veganze maha veganze radza samugate soha. Teatam veganze veganze maha veganze radza samugate soha. Teatam veganze veganze maha veganze radza samugate soha. And now you can just repeat this at your own speed and your own volume. And if you use a mala, you can use a mala. And keep reminding yourself that you're receiving these blessings of the body, the mantra, and the bowl, the dutsi. Yeah, and don't be afraid to say it out loud so that other beings can get the blessing from that. And now if you feel comfortable as medicine Buddha, now you can send from your heart unlimited light to all living beings throughout the universe. Particularly right now, of course, in Florida, the Carolinas, Ukraine, wherever there is warfare. But do it for wherever you feel needs help. And all I have to do is just send out blue light in that area. Now for a moment, let's be reminded of the more intimate visualization of a very tiny medicine Buddha is above the crown of your head, or just blue light, and it enters you and goes to wherever you need healing. You have a a certain condition. If you're okay, then think of others that you know that are in great help, that really need help right now. Or you can also think about what qualities you need to develop. And he goes to, just stays with you when you do that. And now, normally after there is a type of mantra, we sometimes immediately do a dissolution, or sometimes say a few prayers before that. Here we have a few prayers. So we're now on page 15 at the very end at Jikten Anam. What's up? And how many mantras should you do if you accumulate mantras? My mala is, I think, in my purse over there. That depends upon you, but traditionally, if you wish to really develop this practice, each mantra, each syllable should be done 600 times, 600,000 times. So it comes out to over 2 million mantras, because Medicine Buddha is so long. It's a really long mantra, but that's fine. So, all right, so now let's do the rest of the prayer, and it is on page 15, paper, online, page 24, on the third line, at dictum. Dicten, but that says dictum. Oh yeah, there it is. So often we do a confession at the end for any mistakes we made, particularly of not realizing our true nature. So we put our hands in prayer for the next two stanzas. The same tune. Dictum kujan gewajan chugmo neden tugadrawe drashisho. And we have music. Let's read it in English. I confess all wrongs and downfalls and dedicate all virtue to awakening. May there be auspiciousness and freedom from sickness, duns, and suffering. These are different types of spirits, the duns. Next, the hands are down. And we ask those that we invited here to please leave, especially the both groups, when we do it in stages. It goes, then we do this before we do the dissolution. Jiktem hananane ben zahamu
Yeshe tamzela namdala. Tim kada kuza londu emao. And in English, the worldly ones return to their places, benzamu. That would be the protectors, the guardians of the doors. And we sometimes do a mudra, we go like this, kind of right in, right out. It's sort of, it's like, attention, please leave the room. And the next one we do for the higher lamas, they don't need the clicking. The Yeshe pas and Namsikpas that we visual, all those that we visualize dissolve into me and I into the good expanse of primordial purity. I will read what Trungpa Rinpoche said. So this is before we talked about Vajrayana practices have 2 steps. The generation where you generate the deity and you did all the offerings and then you did praises. And then lastly, you did the mantra and all the visualization. Well, now we're going to do the completion stage where we do dissolution. So far we've asked the protectors and yakshas to leave. And then we asked the 8 medicine Buddhas and the 16 bodhisattvas in the frontal to dissolve into the heart of myself. Visualize this medicine Buddha. Then the self gradually dissolves into light and then into the expanse of emptiness. And then you rest your mind in that experience of emptiness. So some people would just very quickly dissolve everything. If people like lots of details, they can have, of course, everyone dissolve into your heart. And then your body and the top and the bottom just collapse in. It's all made of light. It goes into the mantra, the hum. And then the hum has a special way of dissolving from the bottom up. And then pop. And then you just relax your mind. So let's just do this last part. And then by relaxing your mind, you simply let your mind just drop for a moment, just a brief moment. And that's the completion stage. So we'll read that again. We're saying, Chikdim Panara Neben Zahamu Yeshitan Silanam Dala Tim Kada Kuzamundu Emao. Yeah. We did a tiny dedication tune in there, dedication we mentioned from a moment. But normally I think your text might have a dedication, little prayer sheet. I don't have one, but is it Sonam? Okay. Oh, hers has it. So we would just do a short dedication. Sonam di tamje sipani. Tone ne pedranam pamjene. Ega nachi bala chupai. Sipe sole trova sho. So if there's any goodness from us meeting today, we offer that to the Buddhas who then offer it to the universe. Thank you. So my closing remarks are, I hope you explore the practice and try it out. And you can contact me. This is not going out in the big internet, so it's just my name, Cathy Lhamo 108@gmail.com. It's CATHYLHAMO 108@gmail.com. And so, oh, thanks. And you can always contact me if you have any questions about the practice. But I think the most important thing is, if you're serious at all, get the book. And you have the handout, I'm pretty sure.
Well, if I could ask real quickly, somebody online was asking about the 6-page handout you were going through. Is that available somewhere online? Because,
Lama Cathy was supposed to send it out.
well, they said they had the level 3 ritual
Oh, no.
one, but not the
Oh, I'm
other
so
ones.
sorry. Yes, we will make, it should already be
I'll make sure everyone gets it. I'm so sorry. I would have sent it to you today. I didn't realize that.
Okay.
So, yeah, so yes, and that handout, but I'm gonna warn you, just completely warn you, this is my handout. This is not a sanctioned handout from someone. This is my synopsis of it's a flow sheet of the sadhana. But it is helpful, I think, for beginners to have something like that because it's involved. And Rinpoche did give me permission to do all of this. When I went to India with him years ago and saw Trungpa Rinpoche, any moment in the airports, I spent a lot of time asking a lot of clarification on Medicine Buddha. But I think the most important thing, and the Medicine Buddha book is not this one. There's a newer cover on it. And it's now put out by Snow Lion. And I think what's very important in the whole practice, Trungpa Rinpoche just says, just relax, just do what you can. And over time, the practice itself removes obstacles to certain parts of the practice. And I think for beginners, particularly, only focus on your Medicine Buddha. And if it's too much to do all the thing with the lights and all that, you just start out your Medicine Buddha and you're doing the mantra and dedicate the merit. And that's it. And then over time, fill it all in. And then it becomes a very profound practice. Are there any specific questions? I'm so sorry about the handout. I think Mama Cathy must not have known that. That was a mistake on our part. I didn't check. I should have checked.
I don't see any other questions online yet, but if anybody wants to type one in, now would be the time.
I'm just going to look really quick to see if I'm going to look on KTC site for a second. Let me see if I can find it here, because I've taught this many times and I thought it was there. Let's see, under virtual shrine room, let's see.
Sherry asks, will there be a music tutorial program planned?
Yes, I'm sort of a ritual is what I would call it. Absolutely. Let's see, the Medicine Buddha sadhana is here, but let me look. Don, would you want me to send that document to you and you can put it out there for them? Or they can just get a hold of me. I think that's fine. I don't know, what would be the recommended way for me to send?
Do you have a list of all the people who are registered for the class?
No, but Lama Cathy does.
Okay.
And it's small, so I'll definitely,
I think,
I'll let all of you know, I'll send it to you that way. I'll do that today.
okay,
So I'm sorry about that.
thanks.
So it's about that time, and I thank you so much for the generosity of your day, of spending the day with me, basically, and thinking of all sentient beings. And I know it's still detailed, no matter what, it's still a detailed practice. But in the long run, it's sort of a foundational practice. If you learn this or Chenrezi, then all the other practices are easy because they all have very similar steps. But again, the most important thing is have a good time. This is a very joyful practice. And yeah, I know suffering is kind of a sad thing, but it's much more than just sadness. You know, we're dedicating and offering so many things here. It's very joyful. And in Trungpa Rinpoche and Khampa Rinpoche have said many times that don't expect if you're diagnosed with something and boom, you're going to be healed. Do not expect that. We're not saying that here. It is a healing practice and it depends on your karma, the circumstances, all kinds of things. But if nothing else, your mind will be deeply affected by the practice. It gives you great strength and calmness, and confidence. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Dawn, for being here today. And yes, we will definitely all meet up. But I think if you're really serious about it, or if you're doing it with your son, let me know. I would love some feedback from everyone. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here too. The first time we've done it here is very historic. And you met someone from Argentina, Brazil. I can't believe that. And then for everyone here, I have some blessing pills. Let me get them. You have to take one today.